everyone. Welcome to this webinar about the future of fintech in Panama. I'm Remco de Bruijn, the director of Holland Panama, which is the Dutch Panamanian Chamber of Commerce. It was set up 2 years ago, just before the pandemic. And now we have 34 members, which are companies such as Philips and Heineken, KLM, but also Panamanian companies that have an interest in Holland and from Curacao and Aruba. So we help to promote trade and investment between the Netherlands and Panama. Dutch companies that come here, help them with advice, company setup, these kind of things. And also we organize webinars on trendy themes that are coming up in Panama. And currently we have a virtual trade mission with tech companies from the Netherlands. And part of this program is a fintech webinar, which is open to everybody interested in this topic, which were a lot of people. And I'm very honored with the speakers we have. I think absolute experts in this field in Panama, in the fintech and crypto world. So I would like to make a short round of introduction and what their companies or organizations do. So let's start with ladies first, Janice.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Janice Beccera. I'm a lawyer at Panama Legal Group, and I'm founder and member of the Chamber of Digital Commerce and Blockchain. And I am an advisor as well of the Authority of Innovation, Governmental Innovation in Panama. Thank you.
Thank you, Janice. Felipe, if you would like to continue.
Certainly. My name is Felipe Echandi. I co-founded Cuanto, which is a digital economy startup helping online creators monetize their audience. And I also am an external board member of the Panama's banking regulator. Happy to be here.
Thank you, Felipe. Let's go switch over to Raymond.
Hi, everyone. My name is Raymond. I'm founder and CEO of Adelantos. We're a consumer lending company focused on the underbanked and unbanked people. We started in Panama and currently have operations in Panama, Colombia, Peru, Mexico, and Brazil.
Wow. Okay. Wow. A lot of countries, Raymond, there. Eduardo, how about you? What does your company do?
Of course. Hi, Sumit, everyone. My name is Eduardo. I'm the CEO of Paguelofacil, which is a payment facilitator in Panama. We serve from the largest companies to the smallest companies, different payment methods for accepting online payments on their businesses.
Thanks a lot, Eduardo, and all speakers for introducing yourself. So let's kick off with some like questions on fintech, because as most people probably know, Panama is a banking hub, and so a big financial sector. But what about innovation and fintech? So what does the fintech landscape look like in Panama? How many players are there? Are there more players entering the market? Is there growth? Who would like to comment on that?
I guess I'll jump in.
Felipe, yeah.
Well, we've gone through, I think, a series of phases here, like has happened in most of the world. I would divide them, I guess, in 3. One is the confrontation phase. You know, what is this fintech thing? Banks feel threatened and they say, you know, they're coming to eat our lunch. Fortunately, I think we're passing that phase here. They realized, you know, the market is too big and the world is changing and we need to collaborate and compete. I believe we're entering in Panama the second phase, which is the, I guess, normalization phase, where many companies are starting to actually prove that there are sustainable business models where people can start going into payments, into lending, and into some other areas, and actually, you know, becoming known in the market and even expanding to many countries like Raymond has done. So this is the second phase. And I think the third phase, which is where I would hope Panama will take the leap to go into, is the full adoption phase, where we become open to crypto we help make interoperability possible, and we clarify the rules in a competitive way. So Panama actually is an attractive place for more and more growth to emerge, and for us to be not only be about the region, but about the world, just like the Dutch have done, and the people in Holland have done, and the people in many parts of Europe have done. We could be that place for Latin America, and I think this second phase actually grows and is successful. Hopefully we'll enter into this third phase, maybe in your next.
Thank you, Felipe, for this intro. Janice, please.
Yeah, I totally agree with Felipe. I mean, I think it continues to be an expanding market, and little by little, it is reaching a public that did not have any financial access. So I do not own a fintech company like these super guys we have in the panel. However, I was able to participate in a program or a project, governmental project. And I'm going to mention as an example, this initiative that was implemented during the pandemic, where there was a goal to be, for the government to send consumption amounts to those who were affected by it. It's called Valedicto, just in case. So this program consists in a platform that allocates amounts to the identified beneficiaries, and they can make purchases in supermarkets and grocery stores with their personal identity card. I'm going to show you here an example. In Panama, we have, this is my identity card. We have, this is a PDF 417, but many cedulas have a QR also. So the program was able to establish this platform for people to go to grocery stores and be able to pay with the Panamanian ID. Also using a security PIN, and they can even consult the amounts credited and consumed via a website. So they have like their own kind of wallet, right? So the idea was, and now the idea is to scale that the beneficiaries can also pay through a cell phone app, encrypting the QR or the PDF 417, in addition to incorporating other governmental programs for subsidies, since this can provide more transparency and use of the funds. To give you an example, this strategy has what it was launched perhaps a year ago. Now we have approximately 1.3 million users in the platform. So this provides an ecosystem that can also include other players, other fintech players, so we can have an open banking system, as Felipe said. So I think we are in a good way now, and more people are using it, and more people are now more confident in using digital payment methods.
Thanks, Janice, for contributing that. Very, very impressive that we have that here. Eduardo and después Raymond. Eduardo, what do you think of market growth here? How has it gone for your company?
Well, I can tell you that without a doubt, the growth of all these fintech and crypto companies which operate in Panama, for example, Cuanto, Paguelofacil, and Adelantos, year through year we were growing, but obviously the last year's pandemic and almost still ongoing pandemic forced business and people to digitalize their businesses, and that's where fintech companies like ours definitely took a leap on our growth. We can talk about growth rates of 5 times.
Well,
I don't know Cuanto and Adelanto, but in our experience, basically, we can tell you that the growth was exponential.
Thank you, Eduardo. Was it the same for Raymond? Was it the same for Adelantos?
I think for us, the pandemic had different effects, but going back to your original question of the landscape of the fintech in Panama, I think we're entering in a phase that is going to explode in a good way. I think two things has happened. First, the first wave of players, the Paguelofacils, the Cuantos, the Fortezas, has born and proved that there's a business to be done, right? When we started a couple of years ago, everyone were saying you're crazy. You're going to be out in a couple of months. Maybe I'll give you a year to last. And I think all of have proved that we're sustainable and operating businesses. So on that end, that's going to pave the way for the new players to come and also take the leap. And second, in the infrastructure layer, it's also improving. And when we started 5 years ago, there was no infrastructure that's needed as a company. Right now, if you want to do a digital commerce and you can plug Paguelofacil to all your payment methods, that's great. You just skip 10 hurdles that you had to when you started a business. You can also connect Cuanto and things like that. So I think that that proof of the concept that we have done and the infrastructure that's being built is still a lot to be done, but we are one step ahead and it should continue to grow.
Thanks, Raymond, for that. Now let's go to the next question, which is also related to the webinar of this title, "The Future of Fintech in Panama." So, what are the opportunities and also the challenges if you want to start a fintech company in Panama? Because on the growth, you're all very positive, but so I, for example, I want to start a fintech company in Panama. What are the opportunities or let's say that I have, but also what should I take into account? Could you please, from your own experience, contribute to that? Maybe starting with Felipe?
Certainly. Well, the opportunities is that Panama, despite being a regional financial center, it is technologically still way in the past. There's much to be done. Things that are already commonplace in Europe are not commonplace in Latin America, are not commonplace in Panama, things that are even becoming commonplace in countries like Brazil. So there's a huge opportunity to serve what we could call tier 2 or tier 3 countries in size. The whole of Central America, for example, and the Caribbean is the size of Colombia. And Panama could be the hub of something like that. Colombia itself is underserved. Peru itself is underserved, Ecuador is underserved, and all these countries together are actually a pretty big region that could be as big in revenue opportunities, depending on the business model. It could be as big as Mexico or as other large countries in the region. So that is encouraging, and Panama is the natural hub for this. The financial business, of course, is very regulated, and there are some things that will have to happen locally. However, cross-border financial services is Panama's specialty. That's what we've done. That's why this country has been open to the world in many aspects, not only in financial services, but in logistics, in legal services, and some others. So just like Holland, actually, and the Netherlands, it's where we have that tradition in common. In fact, our coat of arms says "Pro mundi beneficio," which means for the benefit of the world. That is something that's very entrenched here. So the opportunity here is, if you're going to start a business and you want to host that business in a friendly country that has agreed that property rights are real and that we're not voting to become Venezuela every 5 years, like some countries in Latin America do, Panama seems to be that place for now. We have several special economic zones that are quite favorable, especially very open to tech businesses. So Panama is, like, if you're going to start a fintech, Panama is a good place to consider your regional hub. The challenges are, I think, mainly related to the current political landscape that is affecting countries that have traditionally lived from offshore services like Panama. As you know, Panama is in the FATF Great List still, unfortunately. Hopefully we will be leaving soon if things move quickly. But that is putting significant pressure in all financial institutions, even though these financial institutions were not involved in many of the leaks and discussions around financial transparency and what some other people consider. Not a single Panamanian financial institution was involved in these things. However, our reputation was severely tarnished. So the issue here is the more paranoia there is around the legal risks of money laundering and these other things, the more pressure the local infrastructure partners and providers will face. However, I hope for the future of our country that will be a temporary measure and a temporary setback, and we will be able to actually revamp our financial system with more technology and in a way that will control these risks in a rational way, like it's done in every place. Every country will have its risks. Every country will face misuse of its services. The issue is for the risks to be mitigated and for these things to work. I am hopeful that future fintech companies will have an easier route to open accounts, to connect to providers, to basically embed themselves into the global financial infrastructure to be able to serve not only Panama, but the rest of the region. There is considerable work to be done. Financial interoperability in Panama is not great. We don't have an open payment network like many European countries do. We don't have standardized account numbers. Our banks don't have IBAN accounts, so consumers can move money in and out. We still heavily depend on correspondent banks in the US to do many of the things we could be doing directly here and compensating regional payments here. So we could do many of these large business models, not necessarily to serve the US, but to serve the rest of Latin America. So those challenges, I think, are being met. And I think people like Janice in the government or advising the government are aware of them. And I am hopeful that we will move in that direction.
Thank you, Felipe, on about to have this overview of the opportunities and challenges from your side. Let's go to Eduardo. What do you think, looking from your point of view?
Yeah, adding a little bit of what Felipe just talked about in a big picture way of seeing Panama. Also, I can tell you about opportunities for fintechs and future fintechs, which all already are operating in Panama or wish to start operating in Panama. I think there are big opportunities as we have all the enablers for fintech companies to prosper on Panama. We use the dollar as our currency, and I think banks and regulators are starting to understand they must update themselves to be fintech and crypto friendly for our hub to prosper. So they are adding fintechs, at least Paguelofacil, Cuanto, I know Janice and Raymond. We are being involved in regulator conversations and banking conversations about how we could prosper in a win-win situations and be more attractive to other countries and other fintechs, which could be operating also in Panama, and we could all benefit of it. So there are plenty of opportunities. The challenge is to become a Panama banking and regulators, a fintech and crypto, to be crypto and fintech friendly.
Thanks, Eduardo. Now I would like to switch to Janice. I know that recently there have been also two new proposals also on crypto regulating in the Panamanian Parliament, and maybe also good for the audience. So Janice, I want to start a crypto company in Panama. Can I just it's not true, it's like an example, but if I want to start a crypto company in Panama, can I just do that? And what do you think about these legislative proposals? Let's start with first. I want to start a crypto company. Can I do that in Panama like that?
Well, yes. Okay, so in Panama, we do not have a regulation for crypto and fintechs in general. So, I mean, the short answer is yes, you can do that. But we need to bear in mind that, you know, cryptos can be used for many types of businesses, right? So there's a fine line between what is regulated and what it's not regulated. So if you're going into, I don't know, the stock market, or you want to do some remittances, that you need to consider that these traditional models are regulated and highly regulated. So first, yes, you can transact, you can establish crypto companies in Panama without any inconvenience. And although they are not included in the Law 23 aspects for AML, we always suggest that you include your manuals and your procedures for KYC and AML. So there's that. So a second, yes. This year, 4 initiatives have been filed into the National Assembly, in which 2 has passed and are being approved to go to first debate. And I think Felipe can speak a little bit about one of those. And I do think there should be some clear rules about many things, especially because this provides, some confidence on investors and the different players. But, I'm very prone on thinking about simplicity. Maybe at this moment, if we do not have like many users or many people that understand the industry, the scope of what this tech companies or technologies can do, then I mean, I don't think it's worth proposing something that includes, for example, taxes or something too complicated. We need to be clear on what we want. We need to establish public policies because this will affect the economy in every aspect. We need to consider international aspects. We need to consider economic aspects. We need to consider technical aspects and the government aspects. So I think right now we have gained a lot of good things. Even if the bill doesn't pass, I hope something good comes along the way. It may be a little bit delayed. We have been there before. We hope not. But I think we need to put everyone in the same page and do a balance of what we want. We want to incentivize not only the attraction of companies and the use locally, but we need to be able also to develop and export technology and resources outside Panama, from Panama. So yes, at the end, I think it's a good exercise. This have aroused many interests within the users or potential users and companies. I think that's a really good thing, and we have now the opportunity to make a difference and establish this public policies to be a real tech hub.
Thanks, Janice, for contributing that. Well, you said that Felipe also has a view on it. So what's the floor to Felipe? What he thinks? What do you think of the proposals that have been launched? How can they help the fintechs, or especially cryptos in Panama, Felipe?
Certainly. Full disclaimer: I led the volunteer group that drafted one of those proposals. However, this is a purely, I would say, disinterested effort, because my company already has a relative degree of regulatory certainty. However, we need, as a country, to set a new vision that is ambitious and that helps us determine how is Panama going to be part of the cutting edge of humankind. We had a very unified vision as a country when we didn't own our own canal. We basically had a colony here, which, yes, eventually transformed into very interesting opportunities on the logistics sector and the experimentation around the Panama Canal Zone, special economic zones, or logistic hub. However, we need now a very ambitious vision of how are we going to do this transition into the digital age as a country, as a society, because we cannot rely on physical logistics as our edge forever. This has been understood by other major hubs like the Netherlands, like Singapore, like countries that were not really hubs like Estonia. Estonia just surpassed Spain in GDP per capita very recently based on their digital strategy. So as a country, the proposal we're making is to make Panama natively compatible with the internet. And that includes crypto clear rules that make Panama compatible with crypto assets, which fortunately, they are already legal here. Panama is a country that has never had a central bank. Actually, for a brief time it did, but it was only a year. Panama has never had a forcible legal tender. It's actually prohibited by our constitution. And it is the ideal place to create the future of humankind's global financial network, at least to be a part of that. And that is a choice we as a country have to make. And I am hopeful that some of these discussions will actually continue because it will shape whether all this conversation we're having, if we're going to be a relevant place in the world in financial services, in fintech, in financial innovation, or if we're going to just dissolve into irrelevancy like most small countries in the world. It sounds dramatic, I know, but it is true. It is true because the global competition is becoming more and more intense, and the countries that are not strategic and that do not serve global platforms that are the ones that are building the future, both centralized and decentralized platforms in crypto and in fintech, are the ones that are going to basically attract all the deposits, all of the consumers, and are going to be the places where the global businesses are built. That is the crossroads we're in, and I hope this will move forward.
Thanks, Felipe. So it's about the competitiveness of the sector, as you say. I see Janice is dying to comment on this. So before switching to Raymond, I'll give the floor back to Janice.
We need a change of mindset, but there's something we haven't mentioned yet. To get there, I mean, it's not only having a clear rules. I mean, maybe it's necessary to have a law for all of this, but a law does not solve everything, right? So the first thing we need to do, and we need to focus in both the public and the private sector, is education. Much training is still required, not only at the technical level for human resource development, but also at the functional level. So we need to make all these efforts to provide all the education and to maybe the companies can establish when they come here to Panama, they can do trainings and whatever. But I think education is one of the core basic requirements to be able to get there.
Thanks. Yeah, we already discussed this before, Janice. Yeah, there's a big challenge also to educate people in the country so they get to know cryptos and the technology behind it, also to understand it better. So thanks for adding that. Let's go switch to Raymond, which like with Adelantos as an app in credits, microloans, and to see what trends do you see in the market in fintech in general, but maybe also specifically for your type of service.
Yes, I think for us, Panama it's in the transition of the credit world. It's a very competitive landscape, which I think at the end is very good for the consumers. I think Panama has nailed the open access to credit, and so that has been a good advantage. And the amounts of banks and lending companies in Panama, at the end, the end beneficiary is the customer. So I think in Panama that's a good. You are seeing a shift of the traditional players getting to the digital world, some doing it more effectively than others in different strategies. but as Eduardo mentioned, the pandemic that was the best innovation officer of the countries and worldwide was the pandemic, right? They were able to make a shift that none of us would, that the world was not going to do by itself, and it pushed everyone to be uncomfortable and accept digital papers, digital signatures, digital transfers, electronic payments, electronic communications, even electronic meetings, which just save a lot of time and effort. So I think that has shifted a fast forward, and I think the landscape it's going to get more competitive and, in a sense, better for the end customer.
Thanks, Raymond, for adding that. Also now looking for some technology trends, because I'm interested, and I think the audience very much so, what is happening in the fintech world in terms of technology? Are there new ways of paying? Also taking into account many people in Panama don't use or have a bank account. What technology is developing in the market that you think will be essential for the future of fintech in Panama? Maybe Felipe or Eduardo, could you comment on that?
Well, I can get ahead of in this one. At least from our experience, I can tell you there's a big trend on crypto payments. In Paguelofacil, some months ago, we started accepting crypto as a payment method for businesses that use Paguelofacil. And we had no idea that we will receive the amount of transactions in crypto that we have received since we launched the project. So I think the crypto adoption in Paguelofacil, in Panama is huge. And I can tell it from the experience of receiving crypto payments in our platform. There's also, I think, slowly banks are starting to understand that they could act as a service. So the banking as a service model, in a very not standard way of, like, for example, in Europe, which you have open banking and every banks have their APIs for fintechs to connect, but in some way banks are starting to understand that they could act as a service for fintech and crypto companies to operate and again have a win-win situation in our hub, which is Panama. I think these trends, for example, in the crypto adoption and the trend of banking as a service will open space for our fintech and crypto companies to grow and to expand, and also it will be attractive for new fintech and crypto companies to start operating in Panama and in the region.
Thanks, Eduardo, and now to Felipe. So, what do you think are the technology trends you see happening in fintech that will define the future of fintech in Panama? New payment methods, other ways, biometric. What do you know, Felipe?
I would start actually by focusing on the business model first. There's a very prominent fund called Andreessen Horowitz that has a very, very strong thesis on the future of fintech in Latin America. You can look it up in Google and read up their essay on the Latin American fintech boom. And they correctly state that one of the issues in Latin America was that we have very few local dominant players in each country. Brazil has their own, Panama has their own, Mexico has their own, Colombia has their own, and they have amassed significant barriers to entry based on, legacy regulation, bad infrastructure interoperability, and others, which has been basically a barrier for financial inclusion, both of businesses and individuals, and also a barrier to entry for competition for many fintechs. However, what we are facing now is the appetite on global class investors like Andreessen Horowitz and others to basically invest heavily on competitors and rising companies that can either cooperate or compete with these local dominant institutions. and actually overcome these barriers that are expensive to overcome. So we will see, this will, I believe, produce challenger business models like neobanks, like it has happened in Brazil and Mexico, that I think will keep happening in other countries in the region, which will make larger the total amount of people that are in the formal banking sector. Basically, financial inclusion will continue increasing. And that then opens up the possibility of more value-add services, like, you know, special ways of giving credit, information aggregation, and some other business models that are already commonplace in Europe. On the other hand, the second trend, I believe, is the leapfrog that crypto is bringing, in part catalyzed by the decision from El Salvador to create, basically accept Bitcoin as legal tender. In El Salvador, we now have, regardless of what you think of El Salvador's government and the way they implemented the Bitcoin law, what is happening in El Salvador is that we have a real world experiment of how 50% of the population in 1 month became a crypto user. That is amazing. That is amazing. And now San Salvador and El Salvador basically is probably infrastructure-wise one of the most advanced ecosystems in the planet, which is crazy. This was unthinkable 3 or 4 months ago. But we're now seeing banks start courting smart contract companies to experiment with you know, crypto applications to guarantees and lending and some other things that will be very interesting case studies, hopefully for the rest of the region, to with a more I guess democratic approach. Will jump in the same bandwagon. So I think we will have, in summary, a widening of the traditional financial sector with more financial inclusion for individuals and businesses, brought forth by fintech and fueled by very strong venture capital from the rest of the world. And on the other side, very strong leapfrogging by basically crypto platforms and crypto companies that are becoming viable.
Thanks, Felipe, also for the El Salvador example that was everywhere in the news, I think. Raymond, you would like to comment?
Yes, and I would like to follow because I do think it's an interesting point, and I think it's a future, and we have already seen it, the banking as a service aspect of it. So I think like any change, it's scary. And obviously, as Felipe mentioned, especially in LATAM, big players, big banks that dominate the consolidated market, if you told them they're gonna disrupt them, obviously the natural reaction is no. However, being in LATAM, the advantage is you can see what's happening already in the world and you can get your lessons. And I think to their credit, they're realizing that it's a good thing, that you can have these fintech companies that specialize in a specific use case to operate a specific thing, and let them do that, and they be the platform and offer that service. So that banking as a service that is very advanced in the US and Europe, in Brazil, it's also working very well, where you have specific banks that they got a charter license just to be a banking as a service. So they got a licensed bank just to offer their services to other companies. So I think that just creates another layer, and for them it's going to be even better in the future, where they can be on the back doing that infrastructure while the companies can execute. Obviously, it takes it's a change, but at the end, I think we'll see it as a good thing. I'm not a crypto expert at all, but even in the crypto side, I think there's a places where they both meet, right? I don't think very few people live full on crypto. They do at some moment change it to the fiat currency, to the dollars, euro, whatever it is. So I think even in the crypto space, I think the first banks that move to enable those transactions are going to see huge benefits of adopting that.
Thanks, Raymond. Very insightful, and your recommendation to the banks as well. Let's see what they do. Janice, do you want to comment something on that? Also interested in maybe new technologies in fintech that are emerging, or who else wants to comment on this?
Well, you know, I just saw a tweet that states The FDIC chairman just stated that regulators are looking at how US banks could hold Bitcoin. So, I mean, this is happening now. And, you know, the thing in Latin America is that when there's the first player, like, for example, you know, Seva Bank, which is a crypto bank in Europe, when you have the first player that have this strategy to implement, I don't know, crypto bank, digital bank, whatever, in coordination, of course, with the superintendency of Felipe. I think, I think the rest is going to fall down as domino pieces. You know, there is going to be a revolution in the following years in terms of payment processing and financial transactions. I think SWIFT is going to mutate or disappear as we know it today. One of the things that makes Bitcoin and crypto so attractive is that you can have this whole open network and you can have whatever wallet and send whatever amount to anyone that has any other, you know, whatever wallet. So I think this is coming. I think the revolution of payment processing and how we exchange these amounts, and then you don't have a centralized compensation account or entity. This I think this is the near future. So I'm super excited and thinking about that. I'm sick of making, you know, banking transactions with people that still don't accept Bitcoins, but it's expensive, it's you know, time consuming, and it's too traditional for me now. So I think I hope we can see this transformation and revolution more and more in Latin America in the following years.
Thanks, Janice. I think your point is very clear. And I hope all the listeners get that too. I want just to give what tips do you have, a quick round, so for new crypto companies that want to come to Panama, fintech companies and crypto companies, what tips would you give them? Just one or two tips. Who wants to start?
I guess I'll take it. I would say just follow common sense and do your basic AML, and, you know, show your providers that you can do something they consider impossible in real time. You can do sanctioned list checks in real time. You can use biometrics to do your AML, and there's a ton of great companies. I'm sure many of them Dutch and European. And from the Netherlands, where you can do many of the things that banks require humans for. So that's one thing. Of course, if your business model does require KYC, there are some crypto business models that do not require KYC and should not be regulated in that way. So I would say that's it. And the second one is share a compelling story of why you are solving a problem that will not only hopefully make you money, but also improve the livelihood of people. One thing that I think we're coming to realize in Latin America is that high impact entrepreneurship and technology creation is a more powerful force for social change than any public policy. That is just, I believe, a fact that we've discovered, especially now with the tools that exist. So if you can do that, you will be able to rally around more actors and more people around your mission, instead of just being a pitch deck and you know, a for-profit company, which there's nothing wrong with that. However, unfortunately, when you're opening new ground, you need more allies. So the strategy that gives you the most allies is the winning strategy. I would say that's it. And in the case of Panama, if you're coming here, appeal to Panama's place in the world. You know, you will come, yes, to make money, but also to hopefully help this country become relevant or remain relevant, and further that deep tradition that our two countries actually share of serving the rest of the world. I think that's something that it's really nice that we both have, and I'm looking forward to seeing more projects hopefully come as a product of these discussions.
Okay, thanks a lot for these tips for newcomers. Raymond, Eduardo, want to add something to that? 1 or 2 tips that you have for newcomers?
Well, I'll take the word. I think a few tips will be following Felipe's recent talk, will be being transparent with your providers about what you're doing and make them comfortable with your operations so they can enable you to grow in a safety relationship with them, right? So the second tip I will give any new fintech company or crypto company which would like to start in Panama is to get ahead of regulation and try to comply with whatever regulation could be possibly on place in a few months or in a few years. So just get ahead of that and don't wait until the regulator come on top of you. So try to be friendly with them and start getting your policies and your processes in compliance.
Thank you a lot, Eduardo. I see we're already getting close to time. I also want to take questions from the audience so that you can answer. So if there are participants or attendees that have questions to the speakers, the panelists, you can either raise your hand if you want to have a question live with your voice. Raise hand feature is there, and or the Q&A function of Zoom below. Type it and we will read it to the speakers who can answer it. I also want to quickly, when you type or think about your questions, share the results of what you attendees think of the future of the panelists, how their future looks like of Paguelofacil, Adelantos and Cuanto. I think it's quite positive. So bright and sunny, most participants 58%. So bright it hurts my eyes, 11%, but still 11%. And a few are still waiting to see how it develops, about 26%. But almost no one that says gloomy and cloudy, and no one at all thunderstorms and showers. So I think you can sleep well tonight. Your world looks very promising for you as speakers. I see some questions coming in. Thanks for voting, by the way, people attending this session. Just a second. On the chat, I have one. First, this one from Hans Hammerslag. Are you aware of any bank in Panama taking a step ahead and getting closer to allow crypto-related transactions? I think Felipe probably best positioned to answer that, or maybe Janice. Well, Felipe, is our banks in Panama, are banks taking a step ahead and getting closer to allow crypto-related transactions? What do you know about this?
Unfortunately, I think that is one of the sticking points we have, not because of the regulation locally, because there's nothing prohibiting this from happening, but mostly because of correspondent banking relationships. And at least that's the excuse. I believe, fortunately, we now have a new class of correspondent banks that is emerging that are crypto friendly. So the banks that, like, first, local banks already feel the pressure of correspondent banks as basically an extra regulator on their operations. So I believe they are looking for options, and finally we will have hopefully one bank or two. And this is just hope. I don't really have inside information or know of a specific case, but when the information is there in the market, I think it's just a matter of time for things to happen, where a Panamanian bank can establish relationships with a crypto-friendly correspondent bank and then open the floodgates of crypto transactions supported locally. Hopefully that will happen, and if that does happen, in very little time, we could see a flock of consumers and businesses moving towards that bank and basically bringing a new dynamic to the system.
Janice, you want to add to that?
Yeah, and actually, this is one of the items in which when I spoke about education, I mean, education also and public policies, because this also involves education to local banks and to the compliance officers. Because I mean, compliance officers at the end, they are used to know a lot about compliance, but not much about the diverse types of businesses, including emerging technologies like cryptos. So again, we may have a correspondent banks that may work with cryptos, but if they are not confident enough on our local banks that they will be able to do the due diligence and do the verification or whatever they need as a supervisor of the accounts, they will not allow them to open bank accounts. So again, this is all involved in the educational area, and we need to look for a way that not only we educate the compliance officers and local banks, but also make the lobby and the coordination with these correspondent banks and make them feel comfortable that in Panama we are prepared to do that. I mean, this will be ongoing. So companies are looking for establish their operations here in Panama. And this debanking is not a situation that it's local only. This is a worldwide situation. But bear in mind, this is going to be a recurrent thing and an ongoing aspect of your operation. So you need to have a strategy for that. And this happens in traditional companies too, like remittances and casinos and so forth. So just take that in.
Okay, thanks, Janice. I see a lot of questions for Paul Helmich, but Felipe is taking or answering this on the Q&A, and I also take one from Oscar Garcia. He's asking, do you think a Panama bank is willing to work together with a fintech to offer services in the crypto area? Who wants to answer this?
I think the local bank is willing to do so. There are many banks that are already, evaluating. I know. I think Banismo was making like a lab for testing cryptos. So at the end, it's not a thing that we can say that the bank does not want to, but they have to cover all this regulation aspects and correspondent bank aspects and contracts and so forth. So this is a process they have to go through, not only them willing to do that. So one of the most important thing is that when you have like your new prospect, you need to go to the banks and try to explain in a very practical way how your business works and what are you doing to prevent money laundering and the identification of the clients.
Thanks, Janice. Also, I'll highlight one question from Paul Helmich from Novodim, a company on blockchain and crypto consultancy from Curacao, part of the Dutch trade mission here. He's asking, well, a few things, but one it's interesting to highlight is he's asking, can crypto companies get banked in Panama given the fear of correspondent banks? Because normal transaction goes via correspondent banks. So his question was, can crypto companies get banked in Panama given the fears of correspondent banks? Felipe, you answered it. Maybe you can share your...
Certainly, that's the sticking point. I guess it would depend on your business model, but mostly banks are under advisement from their correspondent banks that they cannot touch crypto. It's frankly a double standard because many of these correspondent banks are actively investing in crypto in turn, but it is what it is. Fortunately, the market is providing solutions. So if we see a bank actually jumping ship, and as Janice mentioned, Banismo is actually a Colombian group that in Colombia, under its brand Bancolombia, is conducting tests of supporting on-ramp and off-ramp of crypto with another with crypto exchange. So that is actually something that hopefully will expand to its subsidiary here in Panama, but there might be many more options. But to the best of my knowledge, this is the sticking point, and I believe the public banks could take the lead in this if they so decided. That's something to be determined.
Thanks, Felipe, and I think if there's any other last question, you can send it now. But otherwise, I think we're almost done timely as a Dutch person. So, but no, I think thanks. We have one more now. Thanks a lot with for like this great knowledge. I think yeah, for me also it's great to hear how this is working in Panama, what the opportunities and challenges are, and also the relation with the banks in Panama. So thanks a lot having you as experts here contributing to the discussion. We also will publish this webinar recording on our YouTube channel, so people that were not able to attend or were attending but want to look back can see it. Great pleasure of having you here. Certainly enough food to thought for everyone to think about. And also maybe we can do another one a year from now to see how the landscape is looking then. So thanks, speakers, panelists, honored to have you on our panel today. And also all attendees that were here from the Netherlands, Panama, and everywhere around the world. Thanks for being here. Hope you enjoyed, and looking forward to helping you or bringing you in contact with companies in Panama with Holland House, and also on behalf of the Netherlands Embassy in Panama City. Thanks a lot for being here, and have a nice afternoon or evening in Holland. So, okay, bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, thank you.
Thank you.